The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy, where a bunch of powerhouse men and women get together online to talk about love, sex, relationships, and what it takes to be amazing on the daily. Who I am, I'm CandiceHarperLoveCoach.com, and I help hardworking women and couples who have survived abuse be vibrant, alive, magnetic, and passionate while creating healthy, intimate relationships. And I'm coming to you from the amazing Metro Podcast Studios near the Flatiron Building. I love it here. I love the people here. I have my wonderful sound engineer, Janelle. She's fantastic. She's not on camera, but she's beautiful and she's wonderful. Also, I am so over the badass bachelors, everybody. Truth be told, okay, full disclosure time. You guys know who've been listening and watching along that I've done, my theme this summer was badass bachelors. The whole point of doing that was to prove that there are decent single men out there that are available and, you know, looking for relationship minded. And I think I proved that in a lot of ways. We get a lot of great guys on the show, but it's getting to be near the end of the summer, and I'm so over it. Like, it's the admin work and it's the keeping them all straight. And it feels like my dating life in college, like trying to figure out who I scheduled for when and making sure everybody's lined up. And I was going to have another bachelor this week and then he canceled. And it was like, I had such a sense of relief because I was just like, I'm over this. Like, I'm so done with it. I want to go back to, like, you know, really getting into some substance, which, you know, don't get me wrong. We met great guys. They were very vulnerable. So there was a lot of substance in that. But, you know, when we women get together and talk, I feel like our conversations get juicy and rich and, you know, some things come out of it, right? Like, we give birth to things. So that's what we're doing now. We're going to do a whole fall about mother-daughter relationships, right? That sounds good, I think. So Rebecca, Valentino, Kenya, who's here, you guys who are coming in on the Facebook Live, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And you can see me. The people out in audio can't see me, but I shaved my head, everybody. I mean, you know, I shaved my head. What was left, my hair was thinning out. I decided to shave it. I decided to stop with the wigs and the resisting and then, you know, trying to have a whole lot of hair. For right now, it's still warm in New York City. It's the rest of the summer. I want to enjoy it a little bit. You know, I feel like hair is something you can always buy and do different things with, and we can figure that out at some point. Right now, I am Dora Malahe. Look at me. I'm just like, I'm a warrior bitch. That's my thing right now. So tonight, I'm so excited because my James is back. You guys have been listening. You know my James, who I love, 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 and adore, who used to be on the show all the time. She decided to come back and guest. You have been up to so many things, Jamie.
I have.
Yeah, and I want to tell everybody about it. I'm going to, you know, share your bio and share what you've been up to so people know what's going on. I see Victoria's here. Hi, honey. It's good to see you. Know what you've been up to, know what's possible around working with you and all that good stuff. But before we do that, I just want to point out that you are probably listening to the TuneIn app with your smart device to Armed Radio, or you're listening in the garden on armedradioglobal.com. We're also available on iHeartRadio, so don't forget to follow us and download your favorite shows. For the streamers, we're also available on Spotify and on Spreaker. Or maybe you're live here with us on the Facebook. You know, I love you guys who are live with us on the Facebook because you can talk to us and interact. Kenya says, good for you for the stuff you've been doing, Jamie. And Pascal says, beautiful. I think she's talking about my hair don't. I told the girls I was going to call it a hair, like, look at my new hairdo, but I'm calling it a hair don't. That's my thing right now. I'm calling it that from now on. So if you are on the Facebook Live, like I said, you can talk to us. You can be in the conversation. You can always ask questions. We're going to have a very juicy mother-daughter conversation tonight. Or if you're shy and there's things that you want us to talk about, in a later broadcast, or just questions that you want to ask, you can email askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. So we have a little something for everyone. Now, this is the time in the show when we share, right? So everybody out there who's on the Facebook Live right now, I'm sharing in the Ask for Candy group. James, I don't know if you have some place that you have already shared or that you now want to share, but I'm sharing, let's see, Ask for Candy, the podcast group. I want you guys to join Ask for Candy, the podcast group. I also think you should join Armed Radio Group News, because there's a lot of really great podcasts all week long. A friend of mine, Rob Rosenthal, does a great one on Wednesday that's all about food. Who doesn't want to talk about food? And I think right after this show, there's a show about parenting. So I think that's a wonderful thing. I'm also going to share to my business page. And so I want you guys to go to Candace Harper Love Coach, the business page. And I want you to definitely like that page so you'll know what we're up to, what we're doing, what's available to you as far as working with me. Right now I'm sharing it, sharing and sharing alike. Yay! So, like I said, I'm CandaceHarperLoveCoach.com. My talent is conversation. My passion is personal growth. And my purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love life. And that is why tonight is a conversation. We're not here to hand down a bunch of dating or relationship rules or rights and wrongs. We're not here to shame your love situation. Our only intention is to create audacious intimacy, seductive singlehoods, and healthy relationships. So tonight and every Monday night, we're going to do what we do, which is have a conversation that engages, educates, and or enlightens all of us in the areas of love, sex, relationships, and vibrating high. And like I mentioned earlier, tonight, my very, very special guest is my Jamie Lynn McCoppin. Hi. I missed you so much, Mrs. McCoppin.
I missed you too. In fact, I wrote that on one of your posts.
Did
and
you?
Then you were like,
okay. Right? I was like, girl, come on the show then if you miss me.
So that's all you have to do.
Yeah. And one of our viewers, Jameen Lynn, her name is like yours, Jameen Lynn Belcastro, who I think I went to high school with. Jamie Lynn McCoppin, Jameen Lynn Belcastro. There's yeah, the J Lyns are out tonight. Now let me tell the people what you've been up to. Okay. So Jamie helps grown-ups and professionals find relief and reignite their spark through play and creative self-expression through her individual sessions, workshops, and wellness programs. Her company, Spark of Play, specializes in employee wellness by helping other growing companies ensure employee retention and avoid workplace burnout. Jamie is a registered drama therapist and an energy healer trained in Reiki and Access Bars. You bars me one time. It was fantastic. She has been using playful techniques for stress relief for the past 20 years in her work as an educator, playwright, actress, magician, clown, and psychotherapist. Welcome back, Jamie.
Thank you so much.
Yay, honey. So do you want to say hi to the people? What do you want to say to everybody? I'm sure they miss you. I know Lee was very excited that you were coming back.
Yes, I have so many fond memories of being Candace's sidekick for a bit. And I was sort of like a silent Bob. So
We're not silent. I feel like you were very participatory.
Well,
you underestimate yourself, Jamie. You were fantastic.
I had a lot of fun with you.
Yeah.
And I love these talks. I love the heart-centered, real talks, and that's what we're going to be doing tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What I always loved about you, James, is that you were very much like, and I don't know if it's from your therapy background or what, but you were like an avid listener, and then you would just like drop a couple bombs of wisdom. Like, you know what I mean? Like you would just, wisdom bombs. Like you would listen. Because remember we always had a group. It was like the happy hour beforehand, right? Mm-hmm. I'm talking like this was a decade ago. We're talking about 6 months ago.
Hey, the world is spinning a lot faster these days.
It really is.
It kind of is.
Yeah. Like 6 months feels like 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. So, we would have the whole happy hour. We'd have a bunch of people and you would, hold a space for people to be very expressive and vulnerable and say what they needed to say. And then you would just share, like from such an honest place, just like drop a truth bomb. And it was like, yes.
I really like this world of coaching a lot more than doing clinical psychotherapy. And one of the reasons is that I feel like I have more permission to be myself
Mm.
and I have more permission to be transparent because I'm a pretty open book.
Yeah.
You know, and when I was doing clinical psychology or psychotherapy, I was a little tight-lipped. You know, you want to self-disclose very cautiously and carefully still as a coach, right? But I felt a lot of restriction around that before, and I just like being open,
right?
You know?
Yeah. And I feel like too, you know, it's almost I wouldn't say that it's a requirement. I feel like with coaching, what I love that's to me freeing in coaching is you're right. Like there is a level of sharing yourself that you can do, but there's almost, it's almost required on some level, right? Like if you're coaching someone, because you don't, you know, it's very different than clinical therapy in that you're not necessarily, you know, there has to be that connection of like, I'm human too. Like I'm not your doctor.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like I'm someone who's also in this game of life. And so, you know, what I'm helping you get to is your own answers, not doctoring you, which I think is a little different, right?
Right. Yeah. I feel like, you know, in some ways, more healing can happen when you feel like you're with another human. And I mean, I am very aware of that pedestal that therapists can be put on. And I like being down from that pedestal, honestly.
The relatability.
Yeah, because I'm not the one who's healing, you know, the other person. They are healing themselves, but I'm there to support and witness and help guide here and there. And, you know, it's like you are the expert on you. I like to tell my clients that because that's the truth.
Yeah.
You know?
No, totally. It's kind of like we're like adult doulas.
Exactly. I love it.
Right? Like while you're
birth a lot.
Yeah.
You know, tonight.
There's a lot around birth. But we're, you know, someone's giving birth to their new, you know, their new life, their transformation, and we're sort of a guide and a support as opposed to, I don't know, like they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it in some way or another. But it's like, you know, we're here to support you with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Can't stop nature.
Right. I have to say though, like, not to make it all about me, but I keep going back to like what headphones look like when you have no hair. And you know, and guys that are bald, they do this all the time. And I'm like, this is I almost feel like a little futuristic. Yeah. It's very interesting. Maybe even a little bit alien. I kind of like that though. All right. Wear it well. Thank you, honey. I appreciate it. So tonight we're going to really dive deep into the mother-daughter conversation. Hi, my Kai, my Kayla. Hi, honey. Because that is going to be sort of the running theme for fall. No more mama trauma in the fall. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of my guests, you know, that's what we're going to be centering around, like different ways to, I won't say manage because I don't believe in managing relationships, but different ways to transform what we experience in our mother-daughter relationships, right? Especially those things that are not working. Obviously, those things that are not working, things that are working are fine. So, you know, what we decided we were going to do tonight is just have like real girlfriend chat about it, right? Jamie and I have had a lot of offline chat about our own experiences with our relationships with our mothers. It's something that we share and, you know, have bonded in friendship around, and, you know, some things in common, some things different, but we, you know, we get to sort of bounce off of each other. So what we decided to do was just come up with questions that we would ask each other. And I think, what do you think if we do it like, they're questions we're going to ask each other, but we can both answer, right? And you guys, if you guys think of any questions that you want us to answer or that you want to ask, or if you want to answer any of the questions, you know, you can feel free to do that in the comments. Kenya says, you two always made me feel so comfortable whenever I talked about my issues. You're both so down to earth and real. Aw, thank you, Kenya. Right? You're awesome, honey. Love you to death. And you're so supportive because Kenya's like an OG, right? From that first time she came to the V Club to sit with us, it's like she was there every time after that and forever. Which I think is fantastic. You are definitely die hard.
I love that. I love people who show up.
Right? And just ride or die. Okay, so here's some bullet points. And Jamie, if you think of things that you want to add to this too, that I think just to lay down sort of a foundation of what my sort of framework is around the mother-daughter relationship, right? So you can agree or disagree. If it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine too. But just to kind of like mutually lay down a foundation, and then we'll ask each other questions. How do you feel about that?
Sounds good.
Okay, so the first one, just 3 bullets that I thought were just really, really important about the mother-daughter relationship to keep in mind no matter what state it's in. So the one is that we are mirrors of our mothers, right? And whether we want to admit it or whether they want to admit it or not, as women, it's very different than the mother-son relationship, probably very similar than the father-son relationship, but we are their mirrors, right? And our relationship with our mother is so much more pivotal to our relationships than our relationship with our father because we are their mirrors. Like, I feel like a lot of times they say, and Janelle and I were talking about this last week, they say that girls marry their father or whatever their experience was with their father is what they choose in a man. But I hazard to say, and, it's not about disagreement or agreement, but I really do think that what's often ignored is that what we repeat is the experience of our mother. Like whatever she's experiencing in love, whether she's someone who attracts abusers or, has high standards or whatever, that's what we tend to naturally mirror. It doesn't mean we can't transform it, but I think that's a much more pivotal relationship when it comes to who we choose. What do you think about that, Jamie?
Yeah, that's probably a little bit more accurate since we're watching our mother and we're watching her every move. Mm-hmm. She is our model for a relationship. So it sort of makes sense that people think you marry your father. I honestly think it's a mix, but mm-hmm. since we are watching our mother mostly, right? It's kind of like her choices in who she's in relationship with are going to really affect us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's often such an unconscious emulation.
Definitely.
Until it becomes conscious. Or when you get older and you're like, I don't want to do anything like her. And we try so hard to resist it when in fact, when we're resisting it, it's like we're even more like her than whether good or bad. This is not like a qualification, but the more we resist, the more we turn into her, I feel like.
What we resist persists.
Yes, right? What we resist persists. Absolutely. So there's that part of the foundation. So the relationship with the mother and how pivotal that is in our love relationships. And then the last one is that we can create our own rite of passage. I feel like in our culture, even though we have a lot of ceremonial rite of passage, like I mentioned last week, I was talking about like bat mitzvahs and baptisms and different things that we do, your sweet 16, quinceanera, whatever. We do these different things that are ceremonial rites of passage in different cultures. But, to actually have an emotional, mental rite of passage from your mother is not a big Western culture thing. Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting over here like, what are you talking
about? Well, I'll tell you, just as a side note, I did this amazing, one of my mentors, she does an amazing workshop. It's called Be the Tree Rites of Passage. And it's about, you can get up to 60, 70 years old and not have a rite of passage into your womanhood. And it's about really knowing yourself and getting purposeful as far as who you are. And that is part of the mother-daughter relationship. Like animals do it naturally. Like the mama bird kicks the baby bird out the nest at some point. Mm-hmm. But what I think a lot of times we I don't want to say fail to do, but sort of gloss over or don't necessarily do. And I know that my mother didn't know to do it because her mother didn't know to do it, is acknowledge our daughters as separate entities. A lot of times I think, mothers in particular, we are the mirrors, but then they also don't know how to separate. Like the way I talk to myself, let's say I'm very self-critical, is the same way I talk to my daughter. Because I see my daughter as an extension of me, mm-hmm. not as her own individual. And so I think, every woman, whether she gets it inadvertently or purposely, we all need that sort of rite of passage that says, you are an individual woman who can define herself. And if your mom can't give it to you, you got to give it to yourself.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And just like go ahead and break whatever cycle and just, define yourself.
I think that, while my experience was not like there was a rite of passage or some kind of ceremony or anything, I do have to give it up to my mom for being able to let me go. I'm one of the ones who sort of just took off from the nest and didn't look
on
back.
your own.
And, you know, my dad says all the time, when you were 18, you went to college and I never saw you again. You know?
Yeah, I do.
So my mom, I have to give her a lot of props for that, because I see how, you know, some friends of mine, they have maybe a different relationship with their mother, where they feel like, you know, they need to talk to her every day or, you know, whatnot. And I feel a lot of independence. I think my mom gave me that as a strength and a lesson of, you know, you can take care of yourself. And I got that at a very young age. And I think about that a lot, because every time I go home and see my mom, which I just went home last week, and I spent my 41st birthday with my mama and my dada and my family, who they've just loved me since the day I was born, and it feels so amazing. But I think about every time you say goodbye, the pain, you know, of saying goodbye and separating. And I sort of observe, you know, my dad and how he deals with that, and then my mom, and I just think that must be one of the hardest things about being a parent is actually like letting your child go, no matter how old they are, you know, just every time just saying goodbye, and having that separation. And like my mom talks about going back home after she's dropped us off at the airport, for example, and that empty house, you know, it's re-experiencing that empty nest over and over again. And I don't know, sometimes I get wrapped up in trying to put myself in her shoes and the pain of that, you know, and I don't even have my own kids, but I can imagine that must be really tough.
Yeah, and I think what you're speaking to is probably exactly the reason why even the most well-intended of parents don't know to do that rite of passage thing, because it probably is like really heartbreaking and really tough. I mean, I know for my mom, it was a huge struggle, and I was like you, because I left at 17. I started my freshman year of college, and I was like not looking back. I was always willful anyway. I was like, I'm independent. I can do it all on my own from when I was a little girl. And I know that my mom, you know, I think in looking back, I think that she initially struggled with that, because we bumped heads a lot when I was growing up. But, you know, not in a, I think she just struggled with it and didn't know what to do with it. And I think that for my mom, she struggled with her pain around that. And every time we would leave, and even now, it's like, you know, she has dementia now. So sometimes she thinks that we've come to visit when we haven't come to visit. And you can hear the pain for her. Like if she thinks that we've left, or we've been there and we've left, or she wants to see us. But she does it. She's never really known how to rationalize the emotions. So it comes out as anything but like anger and, you know, like, I'm mad at you that you're leaving, or I'm mad at you that you didn't stay long enough, or, you know, that sort of thing.
What does that do to you, Candace?
Well, I'll tell you, it used to like piss me off, because I used to be like, how come every time we come or go, you're acting like this, but then you always want us to come and visit? Like, who wants to come and visit if you're acting like this? But for me, like within the past, I would say 10 years or so, and sort of through my own transformation around my relationship with my mother, I started to sort of, and even like my own, like I don't have children myself either, but I always say I'm like a childless mother because I adopt people. But even my own experience with loving somebody in that way, loving them in a maternal way, helped me to empathize on some level. So I think for the last, few years or so, especially with the dementia, I'm very supportive of her feeling like we're there, even if it's not true, because I think it gives her comfort. Very supportive of her thinking that we had been visiting, because I think it gives her some level of comfort. And she's, of a certain age now and not feeling, up to her old self. So, for me, it's like, I'm glad that I feel blessed to be in a space emotionally where I can support her, at least feeling some sort of, I guess it's self-soothing that she's doing, or like self-placating when she thinks that we're there and we're not there.
Yeah, just go with it.
Yeah. And I actually feel like, because when I tell people that she has dementia, they're always like, oh, it's so sad. But, for me, I feel like it has unburdened a lot of her resentments and a lot of the anger that she had. Not saying that she's not still angry about some things, because, you know, you look at their generation, and I think you were mentioning your mom was in her 70s. My mom's in her 70s. Their generation, first of all, they weren't even allowed to have feelings.
That's true.
Especially the women, right? And you didn't go around voicing your feelings and getting to talk about it or unload yourself or get it off your chest or anything like that without some sort of consequences or devaluing.
Exactly.
You know, so I feel like, I don't remember what my original point was, but I feel like, you know, on that level, whatever pleasure or peace that my mom can garner from not being able to remember or, you know, the state that she's in now, I feel like is a blessing as opposed to lamenting about the fact that she has dementia. Like if the dementia has her not remembering some things that made her angry, I'm on board with that.
That's fantastic.
Right?
Yeah.
I know it sounds crazy.
It's like some of what we're trying to achieve in meditation, for example, is
Yeah.
like the no thought, you know, and not ruminating. And I think that is something that is a blessing if you have to find a silver lining in dementia.
Yeah. Right. No, absolutely. So now I want to just respond to a couple of people who are, Joe says he missed the most of the live show, but he'll watch the playback. All right, Joe. He says, great topic today. Kayla says, I think leads to potential guarantee that we will do things the same as our mother, father, or guardians. If we address what we do that is the same as our parents, we can then grow and evolve as we like by moving forward. Easier said than done. Yes. Like she's saying, if you embrace the similarities, like we were talking about before, we tend to resist them. But embracing the similarities makes it, we can grow and evolve. Like it's part of what supports our growth is being able to do that.
I think so too, because, well, self-acceptance is so important. And we are part of our parents. They are inside of us. You know, we can't avoid our DNA. And so I think that's a really healthy move.
Yeah.
Just accept and grow from there.
Yeah. No, it's true. And also acknowledge, because here's the thing too. I was telling you earlier, there's a group that I belong to that's basically an abused daughters group that I joined to be a contributor. And also, you know, because I believe in communities, your healing is ongoing. I feel pretty good and positive about my relationship with my mom. But I feel like healing is something that you can continue to support in communities, right? But what I notice in this group is that there's a lot of young women who are still, you know, they're in their journey. They're very much in a place of anger and blame and resentment around the mother that they got. And so, you know, and as much as I don't want to devalue anybody's feelings around it, but there's so much freedom in just being able to accept. Because I forget what the saying is, that it's like your hardships are the stone on which you are honed. Like if, you know, let's say, I forget the analogy, but it's basically a sword against a stone, right? So whatever we're given in life, you know, we can sharpen ourselves on it. I feel like no one's mother is a mistake. No one's father is a mistake. And that's not to devalue anybody's feelings if they had a completely dysfunctional parenting, but you had that parenting and you can choose to use it or you can choose to let it take you down.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a spiritual belief that is about how we choose, our souls choose our mother and father.
Yeah. I could see that. And I've heard that Abraham Hicks talks about that too, I think. Somebody talks about that. There's a lot out there about that.
Abraham Hicks.
Huh?
I'm all about Abraham Hicks.
Right? I love Abraham Hicks. But yeah, I could see that. Like when we're up in the ethers in our great amoebic spiritual realm, you know, like whatever the life challenge is going to be, we choose these people to come through as vessels.
I believe that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many layers to it. I want to say hi to Brad, and I want to say hi to Michael Axelbaum, who makes the cutest babies. Him and his wife Sarah, they have the cutest kids. Should we do some questions?
Yeah.
For each other?
Questions.
Yeah. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Which would you prefer?
You go.
Okay. So we're going to start with a softball. All right. What's one really positive way that you mirror your mother? Actually, okay. So it could get a little. What's one really positive way that you mirror your mother and one really negative way that you mirror your mother?
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. I think that what I see in my mom that I hope others see in me is a real kindness and gentle, nurturing spirit. My mom is one of the most generous people I've ever met, almost to a fault. And they always say she's like the best caregiver you could ever want. So I think about, how I've taken some of that in my life and, being a therapist and a helper, I think that I've gotten those qualities from my mom. And I really value those. Negative aspects. So I think that my mom and I, we have different energies. She can be kind of hyper, and I can kind of like go the opposite direction to try. I think I did that subconsciously as a child growing up, being around her when she was hyper or worked up about something. I would immediately like bring my energy,
try to counter it
down to, help her come down a little bit. And that's not necessarily cool to do, but I think that, as I grow older, I can definitely get a little contracted and anxious like she does sometimes. And that's not the best, but but the great thing about her is that she's pretty funny. Like she's pretty quirky, and she is aware of her hyperactivity. So I think I'm trying to do the same thing, like just have a lightness around some of my faults and weaknesses, So there I go again, trying to spin it positive.
I hear you, Jamie.
We're all Pollyannas in my family, by the way.
Well, we talked about this, and I feel like I can disclose this because you were saying that it's a possibility that your mom, your mom's sisters, and same for me, my mom's sisters could be viewing this. And so I think that when you're self-expressed and in this personal growth world, sometimes it's hard for people to understand why you're sharing the secrets and why you're talking about your family in such a way, right? So I feel like, it can be a little difficult to sort of like just jump in and say, just whatever you might say and whatever you might be thinking. But I get your share. Like it totally makes sense. Don't feel like it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. I say all of that to say, like, you haven't said anything horrible that
And honestly, I don't have anything horrible to say. And I have done a lot of work, and I'm sure we'll get to that, a lot of healing around that relationship. And it could be in, an age thing too. I don't know, like, or just having passage of time where you start to accept more and more.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we'll get to that.
Right, as the questions get a little more and more challenging. So moms and mom's sisters, just be prepared. Because the questions might get deep, but whatever. Like you said, we'll get to that. Yeah. Kayla says, I'm very blessed and fortunate to have a very amazing role model as a mother and a close relationship with her. I love that, Kayla. So there are a few things I could choose from, but I think I inherited her grounding, calming energy and her trait of being a grounding, helpful force for others. That's beautiful, Kayla. Now you got to say the negative thing too. But I think that's fantastic. And I love, I think you're an inspiration by shining a light on that and acknowledging that about your mother. Because, sometimes that can be hard when we've had challenges with our mother, right?
Oh, sure. And I also want to say, I don't really know anyone who doesn't have a challenge with their mother because of what you were saying in the beginning. Like, they are our biggest mirror. Yeah. Right? They're the first thing that we
that we emulate.
We were inside of them. I mean, it always comes back to the mother. In some ways, I feel sorry for that because it's like the mothers always get it. Yeah. Right? And it's hard.
But here's the good thing about that, though. The fact that the mothers always get it. Not that, I don't think that anyone should be excessively disparaging their mother or anything like that. But I think that when we get out of that space that we should have had some sort of Norman Rockwell mother, that there's some standard that she should have met, or that there's some perfection she should have. Even the Mother's Day, it kind of gets on my nerves that there's this idea that she's this angel on a pedestal. That's just such a high expectation for any human being to have to meet. And I think, not, like I said, not being a mother myself, I think if I were a mother, like, I don't want to be held to some exaltation. Like, let me be a human being. Right. And by having these conversations, we're letting our mothers be human beings that are fallible. Some of them can't take it because there's some mothers out there, they're very raw about it and they feel hurt if their children have anything to say about them that's not stellar. But I do think it's very important to be very just flat and plain about what it is without making her wrong.
Yes.
Right? Because they're human.
They are human.
We got to stop exalting them so they don't feel like we're, it's exaltation or, you're fucking up. It's got to be, I can acknowledge that my mom was a human being and didn't do everything right, but I can either, make something out of that and still love her and accept her. And when I do that, I can then love and accept myself, or I can stuff it all down and pretend like she's perfect, or I can completely hate her and, just think about what boundaries I need to set.
Probably best to be more balanced.
Right? I would think so. And, still and yet we do. Kenya says, I can be strong and protective, like your mom. And she says the negative, I lose my temper too quickly sometimes. I totally get that one. That would definitely be my negative. Well, not as much these days, but I used to be very I guess somewhat self-centered around having my way with things. And I think that my mom, I definitely emulated that from my mom. My mom also very funny, very charming, gets along with everybody. She's a teacher. And so I definitely got those things from her. Like I can take whatever concept and turn it into something and make it in a way that someone else can learn it.
That's a superpower.
That's a superpower. And I totally got that from Aileen Harper. And I thank you for that. I called her the other day. I was like, I just want to thank you for all the stuff you gave me, even the stuff I resisted. But then the negative side of that is, well, not the negative side of that, but the negative side of what I got from my mom was there used to be a time where if it didn't go my way, somebody was going to pay for it. Like somebody was going to hear my mouth. Or, if I was in a relationship with them, they were going to be punished in some way. And that's totally straight from the alien. The mothership.
You came straight from the alien.
I came straight from the alien. I love it. Do we have anything else around that, or do you want to ask a question? You ready?
I'll ask my question. Something that's been on my mind lately. Do you know what was happening with your mother emotionally during her pregnancy with you? And do you think that may have influenced your energetic alignment and your life experience?
I love that question. Let me just read Kayla's thing real quick, and then I'm going to totally get into it. Kayla says, some parents struggle to put themselves first and feel like they lost their identity. But I agree 100% that parents have to be human, flaws and all, to be all that they desire for their children. Absolutely, right? Like we all need the room to be human. Mm-hmm. So what is so great about that question, James, is that I've had a story my entire life that I was born with, and I don't know if I saw this on an Oprah show like decades ago or whatever, this thing called the spirit of wanting, which I don't know if it's even a real thing. I might have dreamed it up or saw it on a talk show in the 80s, whatever, where the idea is that, when it comes to parenting, when parents want to get pregnant and want to have their baby, the energy around that, not good or bad, not a qualification, the energy around them wanting is very different than when they, accidentally have a baby or, unexpectedly get pregnant. So apparently, from what I remember, and I could be totally making it up, around the spirit of wanting is that there's, either very high expectations set on the child or just a lot of love and affection is put on the child or, whatever they make the child into being. What I know about my mom with her pregnancy with me is that just, I would say a year or two before, she had either a miscarriage or a stillbirth. So I would have had two older sisters. I only have one older sister. And so with my dad, I think that she, and this is totally like me making it up because she never specifically told me this. It's just in conversations I sort of put pieces together. I think that she wanted to replace that baby so much and so quickly that her spirit of wanting was really strong with me. I also think she ate a lot of ice cream, which is why I'm a sugar addict. But I think that, I don't know where my dad was at as far as that was concerned, but she always talks about, when I was born, how much my dad was just in love with me and enamored of me and, so excited. And, I think she just, it wasn't so much about me. It was about, I lost a baby. I want to replace this baby. For whatever her reasons. There's a lot of speculation around that, whether it was just, for her and my father's relationship or to keep him or, whatever, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But that's what I've always gotten from her my whole life, how much she wanted me. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean because your mom wants you so badly that you then get this like perfect Pollyanna mom who's like, I'm going to, do all of these great things and all of that stuff. Because a lot of that wanting was a very egocentric kind of wanting. Like, there was a level of control within that. Mm-hmm. So I think when I was in the womb, and it definitely has shown up in my adult life, my mom was in a state of trying to control and make sure that this thing happens. Mm-hmm. And that's very much been the theme of my adult life, mm-hmm. is trying to control and make sure this thing happens. And it's something that I've had to heal in my life. Yeah, which, it's interesting, right?
That's a really powerful awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took a long time. I'm 47, so it took a minute to get there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's good. That's
what about you?
Deep. Well, I had never heard that before.
The spirit of wanting theory.
Yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. Any sort of energetic or any, desire, right, can be manifested. So, for me, I think I was unexpected, but welcomed. Mm-hmm. And I was sort of, this happy surprise. I have two older brothers who are about 12 and 13 years older than I am. So, I was my dad's first born child because my brother's father was killed in Vietnam. And my dad basically raised my brothers, and I guess they weren't really talking about having their own child, and they started exercising together and doing Atkins diet and then
getting sexy.
And so the fact that I came along a bit later and my mom had matured a bit more and she wanted to do it her way. She had me at home, and my dad had never experienced having his own child biologically like that. And then that I was a girl, it was like, all these exciting things for them. But I think, for the most part, it was a happy pregnancy. But I think about what my mom went through, even like 15 years earlier, or less than that, actually, about 12 years earlier, which was the death of her first husband, and the death of her father. And she's told me that she lost 30 people in her life during her 20s.
Oh, wow.
And she wasn't really allowed to grieve for very long because the idea was, okay, get with it. You're a mom. You have these two little boys. You gotta
pull it together.
Pull it together, girl. And so she had to stuff her feelings. And I am putting a story on this, right? But like throughout my life, I've felt that there is an energy in me that doesn't belong to me. It's sort of a grief or a sadness, some darkness, and it doesn't come up very often, but it's definitely come up at different times in my life, and I've always wondered about it. And so in my story of how this all played out, maybe that there was some energetic transference from the womb there, some repressed grief that my mom had. And a lot of times grief is held in our solar plexus, right
absolutely.
There. Yeah. And so it wasn't, a conscious thing that she passed on to me or anything, but I think that can happen.
Yeah.
And today, in fact, I had a healing session with an amazing meditation coach. And we were going to do this inner child meditation today, but she actually said, you know what, my intuition is speaking, and I don't think that we should go forward with the inner child meditation today. She said, I really feel like you have a lot of energy that you've been carrying that needs to be cleaned out because it doesn't belong to you. And it could be from mother or ancestors or whoever, you know. And so we did that instead. And I felt like that was really powerful. And she said that, you know, in the future, maybe in the next few weeks, I'll be ready for the inner child meditation. But I've had 2 healers in the past month say right away, like, I think you have some, you know, mother stuff that you need to heal. And I was sort of like, I don't think so. We have a really good relationship. But underneath, of course, you know, there's always something to heal. And I think that there's definitely some old wounding that I'm really interested in healing, and a lot of forgiveness that needs to happen. And I'm in process with that. So, yeah. I've talked a long time.
I know, it's fantastic. Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jamie, for sharing that. Yeah, and it's interesting too because, you know, first of all, I love that question because we talked about this before. Like I mentioned that you bars me that time, but I know that with Access, there's a lot around taking on other people's stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like we take ownership of stuff that our parents' traumas and their feelings about things, and you know, even people that we just grow up around, like in our conditioning, and we have these feelings and emotions and challenges that don't even belong to us a lot of times, right?
They say in Access Consciousness, like 99.9% of all of our feelings don't even belong to us.
Yeah.
So they say, you know, you should ask, like, who does this belong to if you're feeling kind of crappy?
Yeah.
And just asking that question, and then, you know, if you feel like a heaviness or a weight, chances are it does belong to you. But if you feel kind of a lightness in asking that question, you can say, I return to sender with consciousness. And, you know, I have used this tool, and I think it's helpful because it is putting consciousness around the fact that, you know, we are all energy and we all are connected. So not just our ancestors or our immediate, you know, family and friends, but even people that were around on the streets of New York, you know, in the subway. Like, we can catch feelings from other people pretty easily. And so just having an awareness around that can be really helpful. I talk to my clients a lot about protecting their energy, you know, because it's necessary. And you only want to let, you know, what's kind of the light, I say, pass through. So protection is sometimes necessary.
Right? Absolutely. I love it. So what are the ladies saying? So Kenya says, hold on. She says, I think that my mother's plan for my birth didn't turn out the way she expected. I think that she wanted a strong relationship with my father, but my birth didn't make that happen. I feel like that's a common thing, Kenya, because a lot of times as women, we find ourselves, you know, hoping to manifest and manufacture relationships through our pregnancies. And yeah. And Kayla says, wow, that's powerful. I don't know what you're referring to, Kayla, but yes, honey, amen. It's all powerful. And she also says, a question, if you have time, at what point, if at all, that you began to see your mother as her own individual person and not just the authority figure? I love that question, Kayla, because that goes back to the rites of passage thing. Honestly, if you would have asked me in my 30s, if I, like in my 20s and 30s, if you would have asked me if I saw my mother as her own individual person, I probably would have said yes. But I was so unconscious to the fact that I was still resenting that she wasn't the perfect mother. A lot of times I think, you know, you think about when you're a kid and when you're a little kid and you think your teacher, their whole life is being your teacher. And if you see them somewhere else, like at a store or doing something normal people do, it's like, what the hell? Like, you're my teacher. You're my, you know, reading teacher. Why are you here at Walmart or whatever? Whereas, you know, I think we do the same thing with our parents. Like, we feel like your only identity is my mother. Your only identity is my father. And in my 20s and 30s, if you would have asked me logically if I understood that she was a separate woman, I would have said, sure. But digging deep into my emotions, I still had the resentment of, you weren't that perfect mother that I thought you were supposed to be. So I would have to say that if I'm honest, it wasn't until my 40s where I really was able to get that into my body. Like it was a somatic knowing, not just a mental knowing, where it's like, you are, first of all, you know, I posted a meme the other day that abusive mothers are also abused daughters. So I had to see my mother as an abused daughter. And, you know, by abused, I don't necessarily mean, you know, that's a whole nother thing. We could have a whole conversation about what is abuse. But, you know, I have gone through my forgiveness process. I love my mom. I understand who she is, why she did what she did. And so even though a lot of those things were abuse, I don't frame them in a way to make her wrong or, you know, to make her a villain, because I'm not in that space anymore. However, like I was saying earlier, I can just talk about it like it is what it is. And so after generations of abused daughters, at some point we have to be able to say, you know, our mother was just a girl who grew up with what she grew up with, dealt with what she dealt with, and then had us and became a mother, which didn't take away from the fact that she still at some point was just a girl who went through what she went through, experienced what she experienced. And, you know, that's what has culminated in who she shows up as to us. Right?
I love how you put that. I just had this wave of compassion when you said that a couple times, like she was just a girl.
Yeah.
And then she had us.
Yeah, just like us.
Yeah.
Right? Just like us. At some point we were just little girls. And at some point she was just a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Damn.
Yeah. But I also think, Kayla, that's something that people, if they allow it and they're open to it, can come to realization around at any time. You can understand that at 17, you can understand that at 47, anywhere above, around, and or in between. It's just the willingness to open up, you know, and have that I don't know, openness. I don't know what else to call it.
What's coming up for me right now is this idea of authority figure. I think that was in the question.
Yes, she did say that.
And I think that's part of, you know, touching on some of my resentment, actually, because I think that my mom sort of rejected the role of authority and wanted to be more of a friend, you know, or more of a, I don't know, confidant. Because when I was little, she would speak to me like an adult. Yeah. And I've had adult conversations with her since then, just in the last 5 years or so, where she sort of denied some responsibility for things, or denied that she even said things, you know, and they're so powerful in my memory. But she would say, well, you were such a mature kid that you hated it whenever anybody talked to you like a child. But then she sort of held me accountable for very adult things when I was only 8 or 9, you know, and kind of assumed that I understood a lot of things that I had no idea about. And so I think part of my wounding is around the story of like, well, my mom, you know, wasn't really an authority figure. She didn't take the reins very often. She kind of let me have my strong will and sort of rule the roost sometimes, when it would have been maybe, I don't know, maybe more helpful if she was a bit more of an authority figure, or, you know, that parent that we all, you know, don't like in the moment, but, you know,
but makes you feel so safe, right? Like I think about being so mad at my parents when they were disciplinarian, but there was a level of safety in that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then, you know, I have to say, like, too, and now I'm thinking of moments where my mom did really step up and speak up for me. Like when I was bullied at school, like she would not have that, you know.
Yeah. Did she kick some ass?
She did.
I love it. I love it. Wait, Kayla and Kenya are chiming in. Thank you both for answering. Your guest is amazing. Oh, Kayla, this is my James, honey. She's a friend of the show. I love her vulnerability and perspectives on life. Kayla also is a social worker, and she works with families, and she's doing God's work. She's an amazing person too.
Talk, Kayla.
Right? And Kenya says, I still see my mother as the authority figure, even though now I do recognize that she is her own individual. I totally get that, Kenya. And those, I mean, you know, when it comes to like that, even that word authority, there's a conditioning. right? There's a conditioning that happens depending on how our parents parent us and, you know, how we see them. And when we decide to transform it, it's just like if you decide to exercise, it takes a minute to change certain beliefs and thoughts to, you know, beliefs and thoughts that are workable for you. So if that's something you ever wanted to transform, you absolutely could. But, you know, do what feels comfortable for you, what feels good. Right?
That's my rule of thumb.
Right.
It feels good.
We are so out of time, and I want to make sure we have enough time to plug. We only have like a couple minutes left. In Armed Radio, you know, they kind of leave us a little bit early, so I want to make sure that we got 1 minute left. We just got the wake up from Jimmy. It's Jimmy Bell's birthday. Happy birthday to Jimmy. I believe we only have 1 minute with Armed Radio. Jamie, tell them really quick how they can get to you.
So my website is sparkofplay.com. And you can find me on Instagram at mysparkofplay. So I'm doing a bunch of workshops coming up, and they're all listed on the website. And they're about, you know, finding your spark or boosting social confidence. And I'm also offering free play shops for any adults who need a play break.
Awesome. I'm going to let you give a little bit more to the Facebook Live people, but for the Armed Radio people who are about to leave us, never forget that you're a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you're not getting the love you need, just make more and ask for candy. I know you're about to leave us. The Facebook Live people, is there more that you want to say? I mean, you definitely gave people, should we leave them the link in the comments and stuff like that on the post? Okay, we'll make sure to leave you guys the link so you can take Jamie's workshops. Jamie's awesome. She just has like a really sweet, fun spirit. And I love that her business is all about like play and finding your joy and your inner child and all that good stuff. Because you definitely have that kind of spirit, Jamie. And you take care of kids sometimes, right? Like I feel like Jamie's one of those people that you know that she's like good with kids. She has like this patience, you know, and she's very like, you're like, she used to be a clown.